Just over a year since the CHIPS and Science Act was signed into law, meant to boost investments in technology, manufacturing, and bring in more jobs.
News 10 ABC's Capital correspondent Jamie DeLine taking a closer look at how it's impacted New York's economy so far.
Do you feel like we're stuck in an infinite loop, never making any progress, that no matter how much we move forward towards an alleged goal, when we look up at that goal, it seems equal distance, if not further away than when we started? Do you feel like the repetitive news cycle is making you guys out there in the audience crazy? Well, I got news for you. You're not actually crazy. The looping, the cycling, the same stories, that is not a symptom of you losing your mind. It's actually me losing my mind. I'm going crazy. Me! Sorry, I couldn't help myself. It turns out it's just the Democratic Party. It's just what you see in blue cities and blue states all the time over and over again. And a perfect example of this, a perfect distillation of this, is this Micron factory that was supposed to open up in and around the Syracuse area of New York, that of course has been championed by Governor Kathy Hochul, that is still, even though there are multiple reports about how the groundbreaking is just a week away, not broken ground, not gotten started, not cleared all the different reviews, regulations, and hurdles. And the reason for this is because New York and all these blue states across the country are notorious for these kind of barriers to business, and this is one of the reasons why we will never actually progress. Even with a massive head start from the federal government, from the CHIPS Act, this chip factory just can't get built. Even with the promise of $100 billion of investment to get these factories up and running, this New York one keeps getting stopped. It just keeps getting stalled. And this is what we're going to talk about today, because it's absolutely devastating. Because again, this law was supposed to solve all these problems. And by the way, in anticipation of regulatory burden, they passed an additional law in order to clear some of these barriers. But guess what? It is not enough in a state like New York, just like it's not enough in a state like California, because it's never enough for the Democratic Party. And this is exactly what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
Last year, President Biden signed the CHIPS and Science Act into law as a way to create more jobs and strengthen national security. Major chip manufacturing companies such as IBM and Global Foundries already call New York State home, and soon so will Micron, which has planned an investment of up to $100 billion in a new megafab in central New York.
So this local news segment, which is one of the earliest ones I could find about this particular factory, is from August of 2023. And according to the opening premise of this news segment, this is well over a year after the CHIPS Act was passed. And by the way, the supplemental bill that was sponsored by Ted Cruz in order to accelerate the regulatory process associated with the CHIPS Act factories that were absolutely going to come. And a year plus later, we're talking about this Micron factory that is going to have great economic impacts in and around the Syracuse area, again, in August of 2023. Please remember the timeline, people. Please follow along at home, because what you're going to encounter is the absurdity of Democrats fighting against while simultaneously promising an accelerating process of reviews in order to get this chips manufactured in the United States of America. Because if you guys will recall, if you guys will remember, when you had COVID lockdowns in Taiwan in particular, there was a chip shortage worldwide, prices went up like crazy, and a bunch of different factories weren't able to manufacture the things that they needed, because we found out that these chips are in almost every device that we have to make our modern world function. So again, already we're a year removed from the law being passed and a supplemental law in order to accelerate it. And we're talking about this Micron factory and all the economic impacts that it's going to have circa August 2023.
Micron will be bringing direct jobs of over 9,000, indirect over 50,000, to be the world's leading manufacturer of semiconductor chips.
So they explained the Micron factory and that it's going to be set up due to the CHIPS Act. Then they cut to Governor Kathy Hochul again from October of 2022, talking about how Micron is going to pledge and come to New York, central New York. They have the governor on their side. So you would think everything is aces already. You've already had a year in order to break ground. You have these local news segments, the endorsement of the government. Everyone and anyone is on board for Micron setting up this this $100 billion investment in the state of New York. By the way, this is in upstate New York, so it's an area that's been under economic distress. And again, we have promises from the federal government to remove environmental hurdles in order to set up this factory. And in addition to that, we have other similar factories that are already located in the state of New York. So you would think no problem. You would think no big deal. You would think you would be able to get through this. But the thing is, with all of this on the side of these particular factories, with all of this momentum, New York regulators looked directly into the camera and basically said the following.
No, we're not doing that. That's embarrassing.
Yeah, it is embarrassing because guess what? There was a segment from a month ago. Now remember, the original segment that I showed you referenced clips and announcements from October of 2022, but it was from August of 2023. But this is a segment from a month ago about this same exact factory, again, nearly 2 years later, 2+ years after this particular announcement. And guess what they're talking about in this local news segment?
The day doubters thought might not come, but optimists always do. What happened? Construction of Micron's mega fab campus underway now in the town of Clay.
So this segment is from January 16th of 2026. Again, a little over a month ago at the time that I'm recording this video, and they're talking about the symbolic groundbreaking to this particular factory. Again, not to start manufacturing chips tomorrow, but to start building the factory to potentially manufacture the chips at some point in the future. And this is treated like the optimists winning out because people said it was never going to happen, that this was going to get bogged down in things like environmental review. But guess what? Between 3 and 4 years after Governor Kathy Hochul made the announcement that Micron is coming, they were able to have their symbolic groundbreaking. And by the way, I need you guys to understand that they had the symbolic groundbreaking for this particular facility because they ended up being trapped for the previous 2.5 years in environmental review. And by the way, this was an accelerated environmental review, but that process still took 465 days in order to conduct the study. Then you had a 45-day public comment period. Then you had revisions to the study, revisions to the proposal, a counter proposal, and all these different various things that again led us to this date where we're going to have the symbolic groundbreaking in order to build this factory, in order to honor the pledges of the CHIP Act that was signed by Joe Biden in order to comply with the enhanced or sped up regulatory process in that bill that was signed by Biden that was sponsored by Ted Cruz. But now we're finally at the symbolic groundbreaking on this particular Micron factory that again, they pledged to invest $100 billion into this area of New York in order to build. And again, this was only the symbolic groundbreaking.
It's a story that's simply Syracuse. Shovels needed for snow before the soil. A ceremonial dig into the dirt that starts 20 years of construction.
My first visit to this site happened, I was remembering this morning, 4 years ago to the day. It was January of 2022. We visited this location when we were determining where to build in all of the USA.
And toss. Micron's CEO is back.
So the CEO actually referenced something that I find to be absolutely crucial for everybody out there in the audience, which is the fact that he had actually spotted and picked out this site in January 4 years ago, which means this was prior to the CHIPS Act passage. And by the way, this is something that is understood by many people in this nation, that the CHIPS Act essentially subsidizes activity from these companies that they were already going to participate in. But again, we have the symbolic groundbreaking 4 years into this project. Supposedly it's going to take another 4 years in order to build this factory. And then maybe at some point in time, we will see chips manufactured in the state of New York in about 2030 from now. Again, assuming nothing goes wrong, assuming there are no further delays. But the thing is, there's already a delay because that symbolic groundbreaking with the governor, the CEO, him instructing the excavator to lift up that dirt, the promise to pour concrete at some point in time later this year, it has already been halted. It has already been stalled. It has already been delayed because 6 random ass individuals have decided to sue the state of New York, and what they decided to sue them over is this idea that they got an accelerated environmental review process, an accelerated accelerated environmental impact study, and guess what? Now the thing is stalled once again less than a month after this symbolic groundbreaking ceremony, because it turns out 2.5+ years of accelerated environmental review, not good enough for these 6 individuals, so now they're gonna have to deal with yet another court battle.
The day doubters thought might not come, but optimists always do, would happen.
If you ever wondered why things don't get built in the United States of America, this is exactly precisely why. You have everybody, the Democratic Party at a national level, the Republicans with Ted Cruz's accelerated environmental review bill, you have the Democrats at the state level. All these different individuals have come together in order to say that they want this factory here. They rush them, wink wink, through the environmental review process on the state level, which again was 2.5 years, and then after that's done, after that's completed, once you think you're ready to go, drop that $100 billion investment on this particular location to make chips over the course of the next 4 years, you can be sued by random individuals in the area who don't like the way the environmental review went. On the day that Micron Technology broke ground on its chip-making complex in Clay, 2 groups, one national, one local, filed a lawsuit in Albany seeking to slow or stop the project. They argue the company must do much more to protect the environment before building what would be the largest investment in manufacturing site in the state's history. We want Micron to make guarantees, not promises, said Bonita Siegel, president of the residents group that is the co-plaintiff in the suit. Yeah, you heard that right. So a national organization and a local organization, which by the way makes up about 6 individuals, are now suing to block this from actually being done due to the fact that the largest manufacturing site in the state of New York's history might consume too much water, might hurt the environment. What about the birds? What about the trees? What about the whatever? And again, now this thing is stalled once more as the courts have to work through this particular lawsuit. So this Fast Company article says that some residents and advocates question whether the Micron project, as it is currently planned, will bring more harm than good. The facility will consume vast amounts of water and energy while producing substantial hazardous waste, according to the company's environmental impact statement. Emissions and contaminated wastewater and soil from the notoriously dirty semiconductor industry pose potential environmental and health risk for the surrounding areas, while exposure to its toxic chemicals has been linked to cancers, reproductive harm. Community members want enforcement measures to ensure the company follows through on its promised environmental safeguards and its pledge to create 9,000 jobs. Quote, "We're not trying to stop any progress, but we don't want this just bulldozed into our area," said Garcia Rulin, a nurse practitioner who lived in Clay all her life and is a part of the local group Neighbors for a Better Micron. Rulon said advocates like her want to ensure the project is, quote, "truly better for the community," and raise concerns about potential pollution of the local water system, clearing the, quote, "beautiful marshes around the areas, which provide home to endangered species, to make room for the new structures. The project is going to fill about 200 acres of wetland." So this group, if you guys don't know, is 6 people. 6 people joined this organization, joined this lawsuit in order to have these environmental concerns heard. And again, while I'm not sure about the wastewater or any of these environmental impacts, if they're valid, one of the things that's a big red flag for me is chemicals linked to cancer, because as you guys should know by California's absurd labeling law, basically every chemical that's ever existed has been linked to cancer, because guess what? Linking something to cancer means absolutely nothing. It is not a cause of cancer. We don't know about the levels of chemicals and whether or not they're dangerous, but people are absolutely terrified of the term chemicals, so they use buzzwords like this in order to imply that they're basically going to shoot out cancer beams at the regular ordinary people. But again, this is exactly why we never accomplish anything, especially in blue states. We have everything laid out for this to be a success in theory, but guess what? Blue state regulations in the state of New York are preventing this from happening. happening. And what an embarrassment for people like Governor Kathy Hochul to show up and show out for this company, for this facility, multiple different times, only for it to be stalled over and over and over again. And this lawsuit could take years. And remember, when they actually break ground, when they actually start doing construction, after that point, it's going to be 4 years until this plant is operational. So this quick bill that was passed in 2022, assuming a 2-year delay, which by the way is a conservative estimate on this particular lawsuit, won't be operational until potentially 2032, which again will be 3 presidents away or 4 presidents away from Joseph R. Biden, who signed this original law.
When Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer were able to pass the CHIPS and Science Act in that spring, literally 2 days later, I said, that doesn't help New York, that helps other states as well. It makes it a kind of a level playing field. How do I give New York State an advantage? And we put in the extra money and allowed them to benefit from that. And I literally just walked off my speech, and Sanjay, the CEO, said, you know we wouldn't be here without you. And that, for me, that just meant everything as someone who went to school in Syracuse and lived during the decline of manufacturing and industry in upstate New York, from Syracuse to Buffalo, where I come from.
This is just madness, guys. 6 people, half a dozen people are stopping $100 billion investment that everything in New York State and the federal government aligned to get done. There's national security implications in that if chips are lost in Taiwan, we're all screwed over. But 6 individuals are stopping this because they got a dumbass organization called Neighbors for a Better Micron. Absurd, insane, asinine, ridiculous, but this is standard fare in left-wing jurisdictions. This is why the high-speed rail thing in California has taken like 20 years and they haven't broken ground on that idiotic thing. They've reduced the size of it. They're expected to spend like $137 billion on the thing. And guess what? There's no train. There's no actual train. Meanwhile, in Florida, when they wanted to extend the Bright Line, that was $4 billion in private hands, and it's fine. It's functional. It works. They just allowed it to happen. Like, what are we doing? In 2 years, we're going to get another local news segment from this same agency with different hosts, because it will be so long that people have moved on about how, the non-believers were saying that this wasn't going to happen. The naysayers were saying New York was restricting, but they just settled that lawsuit and we're good to go. And we're going to have another groundbreaking. And if Kathy Hochul's still the governor, she's going to be there as well. And we're all going to pretend like this isn't happening on an infinite loop. It's maddening to watch this.
We will have 25% of all the advanced semiconductor chips made along the I-90 corridor, from Buffalo to Rochester to Syracuse to Utica to Albany. The sadness, the tears in parents' eyes when they waved goodbye to their kids because they had to leave, are now smiles. People are coming back.
So not only is Governor Kathy Hochul there, but obviously you have other Democratic Party politicians like Chuck Schumer, and he's taking this victory lap talking about the tears when people send their children off to leave to go work in the city. They're now smiles because these jobs are coming. But the thing is, Chuck Schumer, all you Democrats that are there, shut up. Shut your stupid face. You were served that day with the lawsuit. That day, 6 random individuals ended up blocking this, ended up shutting this down. And yeah, your victory lap, very much premature, which is something maybe you have a little bit of experience with. I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about, yet again, another chip factory thing being stalled due to regulations. Till next time.